Hi, hey, hello, how's it going? It's Emily. And today we're going to be doing a 24-hour readathon. Now, that does not mean I will be reading for 24 hours straight. I'm too old for that shit. And I will be sleeping as much as I want. And this 24 hours is going to take as long as it takes. And that's just what's going to work for me. So hopefully it's still an entertaining video. But I have started. So this is the timer I'm going to be using. It just got really annoying the last time that I did this. It kind of got annoying to use my phone to do this actually, and like there were a couple of times where the timer like went away even when I was very careful about trying to make sure that it stayed up. And anyway, I think this will be a much better solution. So I actually saw something like this on Amy from A Star Reads channel. By the way, you should check out her channel. She's amazing. And she has this kind of bookmark timer combo. Let me show you the rest of the bookmark because it's kind of cute. One sec. Anyway, so we've got cute aquatic life on it. Looks like they're like jumping around in the stars. I don't know. I like it. I actually originally ordered one that was really cute that had owls on it, and this one came instead. I don't know, whatever. I don't care enough to return it. But so this is what I'm going to be using because I think it's just less annoying to use this. One, you can use it as a bookmark, but also you can just leave these in and just actually physically press start and stop instead of fiddling around with my phone, trying to make sure my phone is within reach every time I start and stop. And anyway, I think this is just much less annoying. So if you can tell, we've got 22 hours and 18 minutes left on it. So I actually did start the book without starting the vlog. I started reading this before bed last night, and that's not really a time I ever really film. And so, in bed last night, getting ready this morning, going for a walk this morning. It was actually pretty nice today. It was in the 70s. It was a bit humid, but it was still in the 70s, so it was pretty nice. And I want to take advantage of any day that I have that is going to be at all nice, because we're not really going to get too many of those through, until fall. And so I did, have a couple of hours so far that I've read this one without checking in. So let's go ahead and chat about the book. So I saw this and got this at an indie bookstore, an indie bookstore day, and it was one that actually had just opened on indie bookstore day. And this one caught my eye. This is Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books by Kristen Miller, and I think this is going to be a super important and impactful story, at least here in the US. My friends who are not in the US, please let me know if you've noticed this wherever you live as well. But here in the US, there have been increasing calls for banning books, and I think it's an incredibly dangerous precedent. We've been down this road before, and I actually would like to read more about the history of book banning, book burning, getting rid of knowledge. And I really would like to dig more into the history of that. And I actually found a couple of nonfiction books actually, that I really would like to read about how books and stories either have intersected with important events in history or kind of the history of banning or burning books. And so, I hope that's not the case elsewhere as well. So again, my friend's not in the US. Let me know if this is a thing where you live as well. But yeah, it's just very concerning. And so we're following a community here. I wouldn't really say there's a primary character because we've kind of been jumping around in each chapter, and I'm 70 pages in and on chapter 9. And each chapter has kind of followed someone else in this community, but they're connected together because they're in this community. So one of the characters is Lula Dean, who has kind of made it her mission to go on this crusade to rid her community of books that she does not deem to be fit for a godly community. And so she and her group of people have single-handedly decided what should be read and literally have started to like raid libraries, like public libraries in schools and the community library, and have started to just like take down books that they don't like. And instead, Luladine has put a little free library in front of her house as an example of what kind of books she feels should be read. And so some of the books, they're kind of like in limbo. So like she hasn't burned the books or anything, but they're kind of in this limbo, and the community is trying to decide what to do about these books, essentially. And so it's not that she's just like single-handedly taken the books off and is like keeping them to herself so that no one else can read them or anything. They're kind of in this limbo, and the community is trying to, or preparing for kind of a conversation about what to do with these books. And so we're following different characters. The story opens with another character, Beverly Underwood, is kind of Luladine's arch enemy in this community for reasons that they do kind of delve into. And her daughter actually decided to go to Luladine's library, take the books out of the dust jackets, and replace or put the dust jackets on other books that kind of would be a foil to whatever the dust jacket is. So if she has the dust jacket to some book about, you know, the duties of being a housewife or something, then she would take that dust jacket and put it on a cover, or, you know, put it on and cover up a book that's really about being a witch or something that would just like terrify Luladine, you know. But of course, Luladine has not actually read the books that she is so intent on making sure that no one else in her community reads. Of course, she hasn't read them. And she also probably hasn't read the books that are in her little free library. She's just getting them from places around, getting them cheap and putting them in her library, you know, as an example. But you know, has she even read the books that are in her own little free library? Like, probably not. And she certainly hasn't read everything that she's says is inappropriate for the community. So she has no idea what actually these books are even about, or if there is explicit material, how much is it? What, you know, how is it handled? Is it handled in an age appropriate way? She doesn't know. And she also has no basis or training for being able to kind of look at developmental psychology of kids, for example, to see what is developmentally appropriate for maybe most kids of a particular age. Like, she has no clue. She's not a librarian. She is not in the book world. You know what I mean? And so, but she has made it her mission, probably just to get attention, to be honest, is really what she's after, is attention. And she just needs some sort of crusade to go on to, I guess, make her life more interesting. But of course, she's making enemies within this community, because, you know, of course, the books that she is not wanting to be in the community are, of course, books that talk about queer characters, which is exactly the kind of books that are being banned right now. Books about queer characters, books about gender, books about, you know, coming of age and coming into your own and having your own identity and, you know, things like that. And so we're following a handful of characters in this community who have different perspective. So we have had one chapter from Luladine's perspective. We've had one chapter from Beverly Underwood's perspective after her daughter kind of, and were they in cahoots on this? I think they probably were. But, and it's kind of funny because after the books get switched, we're following people who are curious about what kind of books are in Luladine's library, and then for some reason or another decide to take one. And we go into circumstances in each of these different characters' lives about why they might want to go, even though they don't agree with her, might want to go to her little free library in the first place and might want to take something. And then we see them realizing that it's not actually the book that they think it is, and it's actually a book that is teaching them something. And we also see some characters who are starting to catch on to this and replacing the dust jacket of books that they want other people to read, that they feel like is important for other people to read, but putting the dust jacket of something else completely different that they think Lula might agree with or not really pay attention to if it were in her little free library. So there's actually one character who puts like a dust jacket for Art of the Deal on like another book and puts it in her library. And of course, she's not paying attention to what's in her library in terms of actually physically looking at the books and making sure that the books that are put in match the dust jacket. Like, who does that, right? So no one, like, she doesn't notice that people are starting to put other books back in her library that she would be appalled if she actually knew what was in her little free library and what people were exchanging. And we see these books start to change some characters' lives, awaken them to different truths. One particular one that was pretty gut-wrenching about a marriage that between this woman and an awful dude who you can already tell is awful before it becomes clear that he's a Nazi. And she takes a book and realizes that it's the Diary of Anne Frank and has some interactions with a Jewish neighbor. Anyway, so lessons are being learned through some of these books, but Lula Dean has no idea that it's her little free library that is making some of this happen, because these books, the covers have been exchanged. And it's just super interesting to go on. And normally I don't want books to kind of jump around to different characters this much, but we are kind of telling the story of a community. And so sometimes there are threads in one chapter from a different character's perspective that will be picked up in a different way from someone else's perspective in a different chapter. So I do think she's doing a good job of like threading some of these different things to kind of tell a story, but through a bunch of people's perspectives. And, we will ultimately, as I said, we're telling the story of a community. So ultimately we do need to kind of zoom out a little bit more than I'm used to in a book to kind of get that broad perspective of this community. And yeah, it's been interesting. It's been interesting. And I think as we get deeper, it'll be, a lot of shakeup that's happening in this community. So right now people are just starting to take these books, learn some lessons from them, but it hasn't kind of shaken up the community yet. But I'm sure that's going to come, and I'm very intrigued to see that happen. And yeah, anyway, so we are going to start here, and we have a couple more books on deck. I'd love to read Graceless Heart by Isabel Ibanez and Lock and Key. Is that what it is? Anyway, The Romance by Lana Ferguson. I want to read those two, and hopefully I can get through all three of those in 24 hours, or at least close to it. We'll see. We'll see what happens and how I get through them. But I'm really enjoying this and would like to not only expand my knowledge about the history of book burning, etc., and how important books have been in certain events in history, but I also would like to become more familiar with and start to read some of the books that people are calling for a ban on in various places around the U.S. and get a sense of exactly what types of books people are calling out. And it's actually not even generally people like concerned parents or something. There has been some research by the American Library Association. There's been some recent research on this that I want to delve more into, but have seen a little bit from that. It's really not parents or concerned citizens making these calls. Like, this is a political move to control the stories that children in particular have access to. But it even goes broader than that. It's not just school libraries. It's also public libraries. Anyway, I want to kind of delve more into that for my own knowledge, and I want to share some of that on here as well, like reading some of these banned books, discussing why they're banned, why they're important for people, and how this increased call for banning books kind of ties into what we've seen before when this happens, and it's not a good path. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but I'm going to continue reading this one, and we'll check back in once I have some more read. So it is early afternoon, and earlier this morning while getting ready, I did finish Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books. I read this so quick, or felt like it was so quickly. The timer, we are currently at, if you can see that, 17 hours and 21 minutes. So it took us the better part of 7 hours to read this, what seemed like a small book, but took a hot minute to get through. But I absolutely love this one. So I gave the basic premise of it yesterday, but I loved how we're following these different community members and how their stories intersect, and how we have different threads that we're kind of following that come together with some different realizations that people are having, different events that we're working towards, and a lot of random things stemming from this woman's daughter switching out these books in this little free library and switching them out with banned books. And, how those banned books changed people's lives, or, made them come to different decisions, or realize something, or get some information that they needed to help make better decisions. Anyway, I really love this, and I think, of course, this isn't subtle, right? This is not designed to be subtle. So if you prefer your political commentary to be subtle, that's definitely not this. But I honestly think at this point, with some of these messages, I don't know, it's good to have some that aren't subtle, that are just like, this is the message we need to hear. And the thing I keep struggling with, though, is especially with books where you can tell what the political message is going to be from the blurb, and you can tell that this is going to be very heavy with that message, and it's going to be very in your face, and it is. I think the people who most need to read this book are not going to be the people who are reading this book, right? Like, she's preaching to the choir here, to be honest. And anyway, so that's something that I don't really know how to resolve or fix, and maybe can point to some benefits of having some maybe subtler political messaging that can be tied into other things that people who maybe need those messages are more likely to read and pick up. I don't know, but we'd love to hear your thoughts about how we can get books like this more into the hands of people who need to read them, which was kind of a fun way to play with that same thing in this book, though, because, in order to accomplish that very thing in this book, one of our I say main character, we're following a whole cast that no one really feels like the main character, but, Beverly's daughter, who switches these books out, she literally has to have some sort of kind of subtle sabotage in order to get people to read the books that they need to read, right? She needs to switch out the dust jacket and have people think they're reading one thing and then find out that they're reading another. And I'm like, do we just go to bookstores and start switching dust jackets? No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. But, it just, we can't really do that on a large scale, right? It's like, how do we take this and give it to people who most need it, or share this message with people who most need it? Anyway, just something I was thinking about. But I did absolutely love this one. The writing was super engaging. I was engaged in this community and the different people and threads we were following here. Of course, some of the people that we're following here, of course, being in their head was atrocious because they were thinking atrocious things. So we're not only following the characters that want people to read these banned books. You know what I mean? We're following some of the other characters as well and their thought process. Anyways, some of the conversations that these characters were having, I'm sure, are very real conversations that maybe librarians or people in the book space have when confronted with something like this. And having these conversations that maybe are starting to subtly change people's minds, maybe not, but some very real conversations that I'm sure happen all the time and need to be heard. And it's good to kind of have those explicit conversations in this book to kind of butt against some of the ridiculous things that people might believe surrounding banning books. And anyway, would highly recommend. Lots to think about. And she does give a list of books at the end. Most of the books that she's talking about in here, a few of them are made up, but most of the books that she's talking about in here are very real books. And there are quite a few of them that have been banned here in the United States in some place or another. And some of them that have very commonly been banned in the U.S. Across quite a few different places. And it's very concerning because it's key pieces of information that people need to know. Like it's the Diary of Anne Frank, it's 1984, and how to identify the start of fascism, which is what we're seeing right now, and important things like that are getting banned. And so lots to think about with that book. But anyway, we are almost 7 hours in, and we're going to be starting Graceless Heart. I haven't started this yet, so no thoughts yet, but I'm going to be starting this one. But I wanted to check in when I stopped the timer, or have the time still up from when I stopped it earlier after finishing Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books. And so I'm so excited to read this one. I believe it's kind of Italian Renaissance time frame inspired here, and includes a lot to do with art and magic, if I'm recalling correctly. But anyway, I will check in once I have a better sense of what this one is about. But I have enjoyed Isabel Ibanez's books before. I absolutely adored What the River Knows and What the Library Hides. I absolutely adored that duology. And I did read Woven in Moonlight. I still need to read Written in the Stars. Is that what the other companion novel to that one is called? So there's one standalone that she put out. I think that was the second book that she published that I haven't read yet. I need to go back and reread Woven in Moonlight too, and read the companion novel. I think that would be fun. But I have thoroughly enjoyed her work before, so I have high confidence that this will be a hit. So very excited to dig in. And as I said, I'll let you know once I have some more information about what this book is about. So it is quite cloudy today, so we are going to be by the window to actually get some light. Also, don't mind the hair. I don't actually normally shower in the morning. I usually shower at night, and I don't usually therefore wash my hair during the day, but I did have to wash my hair this morning coming back from an Empower bar class, because that class kicked my butt and I needed to take a shower after. So anyway, don't mind the hair. Don't mind. Well, I guess this lighting is probably okay now that I'm by the window. But anyway, we are reading Graceless Heart by Isabel Ibanez. I'm now a solid chunk through this. Let's do a time check. If you can see that we are at 9 hours and 34 minutes left of the 24 hours. And I know it's kind of weird to have a big, huge, chunky book on a 24-hour readathon. Normally, it's shorter books and you can get through quite a bit more, but I just really wanted to read this one. What can I say? And so, we're going with the longer books. We're going with the longer books for a 24-hour readathon. It's fine. It's chill. And we are following Ravenna. We are set in ancient Italy, or long ago Italy, when the Medici family had a lot of power in Florence and the surrounding area. So Ravenna's family is from kind of a small town outside of Florence, and they run an inn, live a nice quiet life, but of course that's not what the story is about. And the Medici family, as I said, has kind of been coming to power, controlling a lot in the city. And there's also the Deluni family, who are friends with the Medici family. And so, there's a lot of power and control that's going on here. And, curfews have been enforced. People are being kicked out of homes. There's just a lot going on. And I do wish we had seen a bit at the beginning of what her community is going through under Medici rule or power, and kind of actually get to see a little bit about that instead of hear a little bit about that, because her brother has been arrested, and he's been arrested for trying to stand up to what was going on, but we don't, again, really get to see that or what he did to stand up to what was going on. But he's been arrested, so that's kind of where we enter the story. And so Ravenna enters this competition. It's a sculpting competition, and she is a sculptor, very talented. And so it's weird or unusual for a woman to enter this competition, but there wasn't a rule against it. So she enters, and the reward is basically a boon from this powerful family, which she, of course, will use to free her brother and drop all charges against him. And so we very quickly, most of the, this isn't about this painting competition, or sculpting, different thing. This is not about the sculpting competition. That all happens very quickly at the beginning. And so, she has this sculpting competition, gets this boon, frees her brother, but then they are like, all right, you're coming with us. And the reason they're doing this and the reason she won is because she actually used a bit of magic in this sculpting process. The magic system here revolves around gems. And she is able to kind of wield some gems when most people can't. It's a little murky. And only kind of part of the story. I wish it were a bigger part of the story or kind of described a bit more. But she is able to kind of handle these gems or harness these gems. And she did that for part of her sculpting and won the competition, got her brother cleared, but they need someone with this ability. The Medici and Luni family do. So the Luni family takes her and is like, all right, now you are going to be our artist in residence, and you're going to, basically they want her to kind of free these gems from where they are, kind of not really a mine, but it's kind of this place where there are some gems and she needs to free them and kind of use her magic to be able to do that, because they ultimately want these stones or these gems. And so she is trying to figure out a way to do that, but they want her to do it quickly for reasons. And so she has been taken against her will to do this, and is starting to have a thing for the son of the family, and also gets kind of embroiled in more than she bargained for when the Pope gets her attention and has a task for her, and is kind of sending a messenger to her to tell her about this task and threaten her family. Anyway, so she's embroiled in a bunch of politics with powerful people and powerful families and trying to navigate this. And it's just been super fun. I will say the narrator is not my favorite, and it probably has impacted some of my enjoyment of this, and I probably missed some things here and there because of that, but I'm still having a really good time with this one. I still do really like Isabel Ibanez's writing, And I'm loving the setting, the vibes here of this old Italian setting. And, endeared to our character, just curious to see what's going to happen with this whole political situation that's going on. So we're having fun. We're having fun. And I'm going to continue reading this. I actually probably need to reorganize some of the books on the bookshelf, like the main wall of bookshelves in our bedroom. So maybe I'll have you take a look at that once I'm done reorganizing a bit. It's just, I started with it organized, and then when I added some more bookshelves downstairs in the living room and was kind of shuffling things around, things just kind of got a little bit chaotic and disorganized. And I feel like it can be better organized. And I just, that's the vibe for today, I guess. And I don't know, I'm trying to take it easy today after that bar class. It really kicked my butt, y'all. And yeah, so I'm gonna listen to this while I do that, and then just see what else I get up to for the rest of the day. But anyway, yeah, having a good time though, so we'll check in later. So I am done reorganizing, so let's have a little tour. So up here we have some middle grade, some sci-fi, and some of my contemporary stories over here. Just things that I'm going to reach for a little less often to put more books on the shelves. The Romantasy used to be up here, and I put Romantasy back on the shelf a lot when I add new Romantasies to my red shelf. So we have those in a more convenient location. This next shelf here is just kind of books that are great fall vibes. Yeah, there's a whole shelf of them. And then I actually didn't touch this shelf right here. These are some young adult fantasies. So I didn't touch that one. This next shelf here is where I decided to go and put the Romantasies, as well as just some general adult fiction over here as well. And then let's go down just a little bit. We've got some fantasies that are inspired by Asian mythology as well as Middle Eastern mythology. And then down on the bottom we have some random paperbacks and some just assorted fantasy that didn't really fit anywhere else, and I was okay with them being on this bottom shelf here. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. It's a little more organized in my brain, at least. So yeah. So I have finished Graceless Heart by Isabel Ibanez. So we'll talk about that in just a sec. Let me show you the amount left on the timer. I just have it set in the next book that we're going to read, ready to go. I haven't actually read or started this one yet, but we have 5 hours and 23 minutes left. Will that be enough to actually finish this one? I'm not quite sure. We'll see. At the very least, I think I'll get a solid chunk through this one, which will be close enough for me, and then I can just finish it out and give my final thoughts, so I can at least finish almost 3 books in the 24 hours. But we have taken a little bit of a break and read a different book for an in-person romance book club, which actually is kind of relevant to this one. But I'm currently reading My Lady Jane, and it's another historical one where, set in a specific historical time period, draws on real history, real people from history, but changes things up, adds a bit of magic, and it's just a fun thing to do. And I really am enjoying that in My Lady Jane, and did also really enjoy it in Graceless Heart. I think she did a ton of research, and you could tell that she did a lot of research about this time period and what it was like to live in Florence under the rule of the Medici family, or under kind of the influence of the Medici family, and what was going on at the time, different tensions between different groups, and things about the setting and stuff that I would bet are probably very real and based on research. It really felt like we were in historical Italy, and I love that feeling of just being immersed, and I was definitely very immersed in this story. I had so much fun following our characters. I found some of our characters very endearing, and I actually enjoyed the romance in this one as well. It was kind of fun, and I enjoyed their banter and just had a good time with the romance. But really, just had fun with her trying to figure out the situation that she was in, kind of in between two different very influential families or people. So the Medici and Luni family, and then the Pope, and kind of caught between different powerful people and the impossible situation that that puts her in, and how that endangers people she loves, including, her brother, the rest of her family, her community back home. So, I was feeling the stakes in this one. I was feeling the stakes, and I was feeling her fear about what would happen if she made the wrong decision or wasn't able to get out of a certain risky situation. I mean, she made some risky decisions, trying to weigh what might happen, and it's impossible to tell in some cases. It could go very, very poorly. And her trying to make these decisions and be able to walk this tightrope, with political tensions increasing. It's just so much fun. Also, I need to show you the art on the inside of this because I'm obsessed. It's gorgeous. Hold on one sec. How stunning. I'm obsessed. Anyway, so I had a grand time with Graceless Heart. I do think, and I might have mentioned this in the previous clip, I do think on a future reread, I might reread it physically because the narrator, I was not my favorite, and I think did impact some of my enjoyment or meant that I missed a few things here and there. So I think a physical reread is what'll happen for this one. I do think there are more in this series because when I look at the Goodreads page for it, it says that it's going to be part of a quartet, but I don't think it's going to follow our characters here, or maybe even be set in the same time period. I think it's actually going to be a quartet potentially following completely different characters in different time periods, but do the same thing where it's different real periods in history with real people, but she's going to play with things a little bit, add magic, add some fun, and go from there, which I'm down. I'm down to see. I don't remember what the next one is even about. I don't know if I looked, but I do think the next one at least has an entry and has a title and potentially a publication date, if I remember right. But it seems to be an interconnected, or maybe not even interconnected, series of standalones. We'll see how they connect, if they connect at all. But I'm excited for whatever she comes up with next that draws on history and adds magic. As I was saying with my Lady Jane, it's just such a fun thing to do. So yeah, I don't think there was anything else I wanted to mention. But yeah, and I enjoyed the magic in here, I think, is one other thing I guess I will mention. It could feel a little nebulous at times about her relationship with these gems and kind of the magic that stems from these gems, but it was still pretty cool to read about that magic. And anyway, would recommend. I don't know, it was fun. If you're feeling something that's historical, a bit romantic, something you can get immersed in, I think it's a good time. So we're gonna next head to Under Lock and Key, and I just remember that this one involved going to Scotland, and ever since we went to Scotland in October of 2023, any romance that I can find that's set in Scotland is one that I want to go to. Kilt Trip is one that I want to read and still haven't read, but I did see this at a library book sale, and was one that I'd had on my radar as a romance set in Scotland, and I would love to go back to Scotland. I had the best time in Edinburgh and going around the Highlands. It was so much fun. So I'm excited to dive in and see what that one's about and see if I like her writing and enjoy her romance. So that'll be the next one. So it is the next day. I am around the 175 page mark of Under Lock and Key, and I have got about an hour and 40 minutes left. Can you see that? Hopefully you can see that without a glare. Maybe. Anyway, I've got an hour and 40 minutes left. If you can't see it, just trust me. Got an hour and 40 minutes left. And I'm having a good time with this one. So Key and Locke are our main characters. Key, or Kiana, is an American. She had been taking care of her dad, who was sick, and he recently passed away. And really, he was basically her entire world. She kind of lost touch with all of her friends, like due to being his caretaker and just not really having time, energy, emotional capacity to really hang out with her friends. And so really her father was pretty much it, and the only human connection she had in the world. And he's passed away. He is from Scotland, and he didn't really talk much about his family in Scotland or much about growing up there. And they had talked about him going home one more time. And he particularly talked about one loch, or one lake. And so she has brought his ashes, a couple of bags, and some hopes and dreams that she will be able to learn more about his family in Scotland. And so she's just kind of arrived. And she shows up on their doorstep. I think it's supposed to be some sort of little mini reunion, or there's a collection of them there that live together. And she's just kind of showed up on their doorstep. And wanting to learn more about her dad and kind of this side of his life. And she is trying to scatter his ashes in this loch that was his favorite. And it's kind of dangerous to get to. And so there are signs all about that say, like, please don't go here. It's dangerous, whatever. But she wants to scatter his ashes, so she continues on. And that's when Locke comes up, and they don't get off to the greatest start, because he's just like, okay, here's this stupid tourist ignoring all of the warning signs. And anyway, and then she's trying to find her family. She makes her way to where they are, and with his help. And he's like, well, it's on the way. It's on the way because he helps take care of the land there. And so now she's like, oh, great. I've come to stay with my family and hope that they accept me, and you're going to be there too. Okay, great. Awesome. Awesome. My life is going swimmingly right now. And so she is not really accepted by all of her family, mostly just because she reminds them of her father. And of course, they've lost him, but they had actually lost touch with him way before he got sick and passed away. Key's father and his family in Scotland were estranged, which is part of why he never really talked about them or never visited. So that's why she's never met anyone on this side of the family. And so she just kind of, as I said, just shows up. And comes with all of these memories attached of him. And so not everyone is super happy to see her. Some of them definitely accept her. And then, of course, Locke is there, or Lachlan is there. I think he's referred to as Lachlan far more than Locke. But anyway, he's there helping take care of various things on this property, on the farm, helping take care of the animals. And so she's trying to kind of integrate herself into this family and win over everyone who's kind of put off by her being there, or not really dealing well with the emotional side of her being there, and kind of facing the fact that her father is dead. And so she's helping out around the farm to try to win them over, trying to just uncover more clues about her dad and his life there, and talk to people there. And slowly but surely she starts to open up to Locke a little bit. When he realizes that she was there to scatter her father's ashes, he's like, oh, sorry for being a jerk there. And they're starting to talk a little bit more and open up a little bit to each other. And that's when we come to find out that there are some things that he's trying to find out. And we see little glimpses along the way of him not wanting to trust her or anyone from her family. And so you might be asking, well, then why is he on their property? That's her question as well, and he doesn't really want to answer that question. And so there's some sort of mystery about why he's on the property, why he doesn't want to trust anyone from this family, but still works for this family on this property. And, why is he doing that? And, there's some sort of mystery involved there, with kind of a magical curse-related twist. And I'm not really going to talk much about that because I think it'd be fun to just, if this one sounds interesting, I think it'd be fun to just kind of go in and discover that little mystery. And so he's trying to unravel some information about how to break this curse that I, again, will not talk much about. And she thinks that maybe she can help. Who knows? And some weird things are starting to happen to her as well. And so she's trying to figure out what's going on, whether or not she can help him, whether or not those things are connected to the mystery that he's trying to work out. And I don't know, it's just been cute and sweet and fun, and I actually am really appreciating a contemporary romance that has just like a little bit of a magical twist. I think it's fun. Definitely feels very Scottish, which I appreciate because I wanted to pick this up to help me reminisce about being in Scotland for a little while back in 2023. And so this is definitely doing that. And just the Scotland vibes alone are definitely winning me over. And it's just fun to see her adventures going around different places in the area, going to a castle, exploring the mysteries that are around, and it's a good time. It's been a good time. So I'm definitely looking forward to continuing that one. I will continue listening and also continue listening as I'm heading to and from an in-person romance book club that I have tonight. We're going to be talking about My Lady Jane, which I had fun with. I mean, if you don't get along with the humor in that one, then, it's definitely not going to be a win. It's like riding on... that book is definitely riding on you finding the humor funny. And I had a good time with it. We'll see if everyone else did. But, yeah, I don't know. It was just an entertaining good time. So a bonus mini review, I guess, of another book integrated into this vlog. But yeah, I'm going to come back when the time is up and we'll see how much I have left to read of this one. And I don't think I'm going to finish it in that amount of time, but hopefully I'll at least get somewhat close, and then we can check in, see how I'm feeling at that point, and then close this out once I actually finish it. Because I'm not gonna leave you hanging with, a small amount of a romance book left at the end of the 24 hours. I'm not gonna leave you hanging like that. Don't worry. We'll actually finish the book and see what my final thoughts are. So yeah, all right. So I'm gonna keep reading, and yeah, let's go. So it is the next day. I did run out of time just as I got back from going to my in-person romance book club meetup. So I switched audiobooks last night before I went to bed so that I wouldn't get any further in this. But the timer stopped right when I was around page 260, chapter 24. I had just finished the chapter, so we still have this bottom chunk below the timer to read. So, but let me just show you that it is at 0. So we are at 0, chapter 24. So I've got, I think, a bit over 100 pages left to go. And so I'm going to go ahead and continue on now that I've given a quick update. Not many other thoughts so far from when I last checked in. We're still trying to figure out some things about this mystery. They've gone to a couple of different places and had a couple realizations through some conversations with people, but they're trying to figure out this mystery, and we'll see what happens there. But it's just been fun. It's so Scottish. It's so Scottish. I love it. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just letting her take me for a ride and just having a good time. So I'm going to continue with the next 100 and something pages, and we'll report back once I'm actually done. I assume that they're going to go through a little bit more as they're trying to figure out this mystery, and we'll see what reveals actually happen to do with the mystery and kind of the history intertwining the two families. That's also kind of a fun aspect here, is just them trying to dig into the history of the two families and how they were intertwined to get information. And, you know, this information has kind of been passed down throughout generations, but some records have been destroyed throughout the process. And so, you know, in fires and various situations like that. So, you know, what new things could come up that, you know, weren't accurately passed down from generation to generation. Maybe, like, is there inaccurate information? What do they actually know? I don't know. It's just, but it's fun to see kind of the history of these two families in this very local area in Scotland, where these two families have kind of been in this specific area for a long time. That's just kind of a fun idea, and then just add a little bit of magic to that. I don't know, that's always fun for me. So yeah, just having a good time, and I wish I were back in Scotland. I wish I were back in Scotland so badly. Take me back. Take me back to Scotland. Oh my god, I want to go around Edinburgh again. We didn't get to go to Glasgow, so I want to go to Glasgow, explore more of the Highlands. Anyway, whatever. Neither here nor there, but this is definitely making me want to go back to Scotland. So, mission accomplished there. And yeah, I'm just going to continue, and then we'll give more thoughts once I've finished. So here to round out this 24-hour plus reading vlog. So I did finish the remaining 100 whatever pages that I had of Under Lock and Key after the timer went down to 0. So, you know, a little bit over 24 hours, as I said, but I had a lot of fun with this one. I don't know. I don't really have much more to add, but their dynamic was fun. I loved the process of her getting to know her family and trying to just figure her life out, figure her place in the world out after her father's passing. And I don't know, they ended up being pretty cute together. I think whenever I want just a very Scottish feeling story, which, trust me, is going to happen again, I feel like I could reread this and it would be great. I also want to read Kilt Trip as another Scottish romance that I want to read, contemporary romance. So anyway, I feel like I just want a whole collection of romances that make me think of Scotland, and then hopefully that'll tide me over until whenever I can next make my way to Scotland, which hopefully will not be too long because I want to go back. So thank you so much for joining me. I feel like this is a very successful vlog, a very interesting book that is really inspiring me to delve more into banned or challenged books, and I'm going to make that a part of some things going forward once I can get the number of series I'm in the middle of down quite a bit. I think one of the projects I want to tackle is reading more banned books, so that'll be an upcoming, I say upcoming like it'll eminently be upcoming, in the vague near-ish future on my channel. We'll be reading banned challenged books and talking about them and talking about why they're challenged and what it means that this is increasing a lot in our country right now. So definitely get to have that a historical fantasy that was super fun and transported me to ancient Italy, and a contemporary one that transported me to Scotland. You know, we were going all over the place, and I love that. I love that for me. So I think this is a very successful 24-hour vlog, and I was very excited to get to all of these books. So glad to have them under my belt, and thank you so much for joining me. And I do hope to do 24-hour reading vlogs in the future, so let me know what your favorite format of doing these is. I for sure cannot do 24 hours straight. That is just not in the cards. I am too old. But if there are formats that might be more fun or that you've enjoyed from other creators or something that would be fun to incorporate, do let me know. And be sure to subscribe for more bookish content. I will also link my Instagram down below, my Pango store for used books down below if you want to check out what's on there. And I will also link my Etsy store, it has just a few designs, but I will link that below, and also more information about how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.